You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 4, Episode 11. Finally, Some Answers. Written by Wendy Herman. Read by Wendy Herman. I disarmed my dad in a split second, but it was too late. Trevor was on the ground, motionless. Ty had dropped his ice pack on the floor as he reacted and leapt to Trevor's aid. He was kneeling over him, tearing off his suit jacket as quickly but gently as he could. I had my dad pinned against the wall, but he wasn't struggling. "Ty!" I yelled, hoping for some good news. "I can't find it." "What?" "There's no blood. I can't find any—" He stopped abruptly, mid-word. "What's wrong?" Suddenly, Ty was laughing. I slowly released my dad after checking him over for any other weapons, and went to Ty. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Ty?" I said softly. He looked up at me with a smile. That's when I glanced down at Trevor, who was stirring. Ty had ripped Trevor's shirt open, trying to find the entry wound, and had revealed something neither of us expected. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. And the bullet was lodged in the thick fibers right over his heart. I took a deep breath, dropped down to my knees next to Ty, and started to laugh. Ty soon joined me. Just then, Trevor opened his eyes slowly and mumbled something. We both stopped giggling and leaned forward. "What, Trevor?" Ty asked softly. I said, "What the hell is so funny?" "Your uncanny ability to survive," Ty replied, knocking softly on Trevor's vest. Trevor raised his eyebrows and exhaled. I had a feeling it was going to be an interesting day. "Yeah, well, your feelings have always been pretty accurate," Ty said, and for a split second I had a feeling of my own. A familiar feeling of the three of us, laughing together. And it wasn't a recent memory from when I was Trevor's Stepford wife. It was much older. I smiled, but didn't share my first genuine near memory with the two men. I hadn't forgotten that my father had just tried to kill Trevor, and he was still in the room. I turned to him and noticed he was a wreck. His hair was a mess, his clothes rumpled from being worn for 2 days, and his face was a mix of confusion and horror. "Dad?" He looked at me, and I tried hard to feel sorry for him, but I just couldn't muster it. "What the hell were you thinking?" The confusion took over. I thought you wanted... You thought I wanted you to kill Trevor." "Yes, Freya, he's been lying to you. The things he's done. I just wanted it to be over." "Dad, killing Trevor isn't the answer. He's not the bad guy. He was just playing his part and keeping his word to Ty." I glanced back, and Ty was helping Trevor to his feet. He was a little pale, but was recovering quickly. He sat down at the conference table and took a few deep breaths, his shirt still open to the protective vest, while Ty came to my side. "Jerry, Trevor confessed to all the lies, but what we found in my vault was even more enlightening," Ty said to my dad, who was starting to look less like a zombie as what we were saying began to sink in. "And it proves Trevor was just trying to keep Freya and me safe all these years." "We're not done talking about what's on that tape," I said to my dad, though clearly directing it at Ty. "But Ty's right. It proves all Trevor is really guilty of is being a loyal friend. A loyal, stupid, testosterone-filled, pig-headed friend. Crazy as it sounds." "So, my dad stammered, sewing the pieces of the puzzle together slowly. "You shot a man while he was confessing, yes." Ty's lack of tact made me grin, but I was still fuming about what he and Trevor had done. I just wished there was a damn thing I could do about it. Suddenly, Ty turned back to Trevor, as if remembering something. "Are you Russian or not, Trev?" "Russian? No, of course I'm not Russian." "Why the devil would you think that?" my dad chimed in. "I thought he was a psychopath trying to manipulate my daughter, but he's no Rusky." I turned to him, surprised at his reaction. He looked shell-shocked, but he was trying to participate in the conversation, still leaning against the wall I'd had him pinned against. I was really confused. If Trevor was Russian, Jerry would have known 20 years ago. At least, I assumed he would have known. I had a flashback. You were talking to some guy about giving me false memories to fix the blank space the implant had made, and you were speaking in a Russian accent. Trevor lowered his head for a moment, accessing the scene Ty had just described. When he raised his head, he said, "I remember the conversation, but I don't have a clue why you think I had an accent." We were all silent for a moment until Ty asked, "Okay, then who were you talking to? And what the hell did you mean by blank space?" "We have blank space in our implants?" I asked. "No," Ty answered. "Blank space in our memories." "Well, isn't that already a given, since we don't remember what really happened?" "We have false memories to replace the real ones," Ty reminded me. "That's different from blank space. Trevor made it sound like it could cause serious brain damage and trauma." Trevor raised his hands in the air at us. "Hold on. There's no blank space in anyone's memories. I thought that's what it was, back then. But the technology has advanced so much in 20 years. You have no idea." "Trevor," I interrupted. "Just tell us." He took a deep breath to keep himself calm. "Okay," he said. "When I said those things, I truly believed that's what was causing your implants to short-circuit, but—" "You said our implants didn't short-circuit," I broke in. "That it was some upgrade you—" This time, Trevor cut me off. "I'm getting to that." He took another deep breath, and I conceded with a small nod. "Rip, the conversation you heard, and I can't believe you heard it because you were under anesthesia at the time, was just after we tried an upgrade to your implants. Strictly programming, no slicing and dicing necessary. It was causing more harm than good, and I didn't think I could fix it until I got in there." "In where? You just said you didn't cut us open for the upgrade," Ty said. "Relax. In the programming," Trevor replied. "Once I got in there, I was able to take out the upgrade, and it fixed what I thought was this void in your memories. But I was prepared to give you fake memories to try and fill in the blanks. I was relieved I didn't have to, but..." "But what?" "You did give us false memories," I said, even though most of what Trevor was saying was starting to make sense. "Sort of." "Yes, but not until later. The whole ordeal with the upgrade actually gave me the idea of how to rewrite your memories for real, when we needed a plan B to save your lives." "Oh yes, because that idea was pure genius," I stated in my best sarcastic tone. I turned to my dad, who was looking a little more human as he listened to our conversation. "Dad, how much of this did you know?" "Everything, except for the part about Rip actually asking Trevor to write him out of your life. I was all for erasing your memory of RVW, if it would keep you both safe, but when I realized what Trevor was doing, I lost it. I didn't believe him when he tried to tell me that he was doing what Rip wanted." Jerry looked up at Trevor now, guilt in his eyes. "He had no proof, and it just didn't make sense to me. But I was too late. Your memories had already been altered, so I threatened to tell Dunwaddle, which was just piling more stupid on top of the pile." I nodded in agreement as he continued. "That's when Trevor and I came to an arrangement of sorts. He promised he would be good to you and keep you safe. Since my only thought was your safety, he gave me a fatherly look that was vaguely familiar. I didn't seem to have any other options. But I never told him he had to stay away from you, Freya." Trevor offered this, and I couldn't help but give him a sad look. My dad stepped closer to me, putting a gentle hand on my shoulder. "No, that was my decision." He smirked and then sighed. "It seems all the men in your life are complete idiots." I looked at each of them, and they all seemed to agree, for the first time probably ever, at least since they had decided they were qualified to make life-changing decisions on my behalf. I'd never felt so loved and so betrayed at the same time. "But Trevor, I know I heard you speaking with a Russian accent." Ty wasn't about to let his flashback go, and I wanted answers just as much as he did. Just then Trevor's face lit up. He had remembered something. "The other guy!" Ty raised an eyebrow at him. "The guy I was talking to. You remember him, Jerry. The Russian dude." Jerry maintained a blank stare. "The diplomat or royalty, whatever he was, with all the money." Jerry suddenly came to life, clearly catching up to Trevor's memory. The fat cat! He was a czar or something. Yes, Trevor rejoiced. Jesus, I'd forgotten about him, Jerry mumbled, trailing off into his thoughts of 20 years ago. Ty and I waited for them to remember we were in the room. After a few seconds, Trevor turned back to us. He was a big wig in Moscow, but he knew the war was coming to an end, and he knew Russia wasn't going to win. He promised Dunwaddle his money for the RBW program, and other stuff, I'm sure, if the senator would arrange a very quiet and smooth defection for the guy when we won. The guy you were talking to, telling him all about our implants, he was some Russian millionaire? Ty asked, not believing a word of it. I was ordered to tell him everything, Trevor shrugged. Still, Ty said thoughtfully, why would I remember you with the accent and the other guy without one? It doesn't make sense. Trevor shrugged again. In the simplest terms, we were messing with your head, and the implants have proved to be nothing if unpredictable. You just think you remember us with the wrong accents. The brain is a very complicated thing. That's your answer? The brain is a very complicated thing? I couldn't believe that was the defense he was going with, though I guess it did make more sense than a lot of other things about this mess. Trevor suddenly cocked his head, raising one ear to the ceiling, like he was listening for something. Trevor? I inquired. I just realized. Why didn't the alarm sound when Jerry shot me? I turned it off before I came down here. We all glared at him. Premeditated, Jerry. That won't bode well in court, Trevor said, and I wasn't sure if he was kidding or not, until he broke the awkward silence with a boisterous laugh. And as if convicting himself to life in prison, Jerry added, and I waited until after 5. Building's practically empty. Dad, I started, but just didn't know what to say. Nothing could take back the fact that he had walked into the room with the intent to kill Trevor, and would have succeeded if Trevor hadn't had the premonition to wear a bulletproof vest. And although I'd wanted to kill the guy myself several times over the past few days, I felt like I was starting to see my life in a brighter light, and it was finally making some sense. Crazy sense, but sense. Trevor still wasn't telling us everything, of that I was certain, but I was starting to see him less and less as a real threat. The one thing I did believe was that he wanted to help Ty and me get the old senator off our trail for good, and that was all I cared about at the moment. Then what my dad had just said registered with my mommy brain. Wait, it's after 5? I need to go get the boys. I'll go with you, Ty said. I immediately headed for the door, Ty on my heels, when Trevor said, Freya. I stopped in my tracks and turned. I won't come home tonight if you want to tell the kids I'm still out of town. I took a deep breath and tried to sort through the million things I wanted to say to him, and settled on, I think it's time to tell them what's going on, that you won't be home ever. I watched him and gauged his reaction. He surprised me with a smile. Do you want me to talk to them? No, not yet. I want to talk to them first, with Ty. Ty reached into his pants pocket and pulled out his keys, taking one in particular off the ring and holding it out to Trevor. Stay at my place, he said. Trevor froze for a second, then smirked as he reached out and snagged the key. Thanks, man. Ty nodded, and I couldn't help but feel good about the fact that there would be no fight to the death for my hand, although I had spent an inordinate amount of time fantasizing about it. We were almost out the door when Trevor stopped us again. You're leaving me here alone with him? He asked, an odd joking tone in his voice. I turned back and realized that my dad had just had this lost look on his face again. I couldn't leave him there, unarmed, and with the guy he'd just tried to kill, who happened to still have his weapon. I didn't really think Trevor would hurt Jerry, but... Dad, come with us. He happily trotted after us, probably glad for some escape from everything that had happened. Ty drove, since my van was still at Jabba's, and he paid little attention to traffic regulations, which was fine with me. My dad was strangely quiet in the back seat. I wanted to talk to Ty about Trevor's accommodating behavior, and his support for the two of us being together now that everything was out in the open. Even if everything he had told us was true, which seemed to be the case, was it really so easy for him to give me up? I didn't want to mention any of this while my dad was in the car, though, since I still wasn't sure how much he was keeping from us. He and Trevor seemed to share their own vault of secrets, and I was too tired to open that door again today. I texted Levi, and he texted right back, assuring me they were fine and having a great time, but I was still very anxious to get to them. We pulled into the parking lot of the old bookstore, and my heart skipped a beat. I wasn't ready to face this obstacle yet either, but it seemed I wasn't being given a choice. There was one other car in the lot. It was Talia's.
You're listening to Big World Network.